As of this month, I've been teaching guitar now for 14 years, and some of my very first students are still my students today. And yeah, they're really good now. Over the years, a teacher starts to notice some patterns, especially with intermediate guitar players. We can get so focused on the things that we really love to do that we forget some of the fundamentals. So here are 5 basics that students tend to forget. Fundamental number 1 are open chords. I've had students who could rip on the solo to Stairway to Heaven, but they can't remember how to play a basic open C chord. And let's face it, Jimmy Page knows how to play a C chord, right? We have to learn and know all these chords because not only are they the greatest sounding chords, open chords are the greatest sounding chords because they have all those open strings that ring along with them, but also because all those shapes become the fundamental shapes for everything else going up the fretboard, right? We need to know C, A, G, E, D, right? Caged. And we need to know all the common minor versions of those, right? We need to know A minor and E minor and D minor. And what about the 7 versions of those, right? We need E7 and A7 and D7, or even the minor 7 versions of those, E minor 7, A minor 7, D minor 7. We've got to know all those, and when we know those, not only does it make playing songs down here easy, but we use those shapes all the way up the fretboard because, as we're going to see, they become the basis for so many things on the guitar. And that brings me to the fundamental number 2, which is bar chords. Because if you've ever played in a band before in, say, rock and roll or folk or pop music, you'll realize that playing guitar is 95% rhythm guitar. Wouldn't we love to just be playing solos all the time? But in reality, that's just not how it is. We're playing chords a lot of the time. So if I said to you, play a C-sharp minor bar chord, would you be able to play it right away? That's where we want to be at eventually. We want to know instantly where that C-sharp minor is. We don't want our bandmates to have to be waiting for us to find, oh, C-sharp, oh my gosh. And it's not that hard. If we put the time into it, you can find those chords really quick. How do we do it? Well, we got to know the notes on the low E and the A string real quick, so we can memorize those. That doesn't take too long, because that's where we find the bar chords. For example, if we need that C-sharp minor, we just find a C-sharp on the A string. And then we also know that our bar chords are based on our open chord shapes, right? So the root is on A in this case, so therefore it's the shape of A minor moved up. And there's C-sharp minor right there. Number 3 is for all of you who do enjoy soloing. Now, I recognize that some students aren't really into soloing. They just want to learn rhythm guitar. They like to play chords and sing songs, and that's great too. But if you are into soloing, you probably know your easy shape, and you might even know your extension shape, but so many of us get stuck there and we don't continue on and learn all the shapes or practice all the shapes. Now, if you're just learning all the shapes for the first time, good for you. Keep at it, because you can do it. And we get so stuck in easy shape because so much of classic rock and blues was written in those shapes. But in reality, they're quite limiting, right? If we only know easy shape, there's not much distance that we can travel on the fretboard. We want to be able to travel from here into extension shape, shape 3, shape 4, 5, all the way up to the root again, which is easy shape again, right? That allows us to travel the entire fretboard, and it's just a matter of memorization and practicing those shapes. You can do it. It will mean that you'll be so free to move wherever you want whenever you take a solo, and it means also that if the song is in a different key, we're not stuck in a tiny range. Because if you think about it, some keys, they end up being easy shape is here. Like, for example, key of G. Easy shape is here, which is kind of low, can be good for a while. Or easy shape is way up here at the 15th fret, which is kind of high, could be good for a while. But we want to be able to play down here as well, don't we, right? In a a mid-range, or span the whole fretboard again in G minor pentatonic or whatever key we need. Number 4 is something that I teach to all my students because I think it's essential for all of us to know this, whether we're just playing rhythm guitar or whether we're into soloing or both. And that is the concept of 1, 4, and 5. Now, what is that? This is something that students resist often, and I have to admit, even when I was young, I resisted thinking of music in this way. I was told to do it, and I was told about all the benefits of why you should do it, but I was still like, but why? I just want to think of it as G and C and D. Why do I got to think of numbers? But as you start using it, you will see what happens. You will be able to learn songs so fast. You will be able to memorize songs so fast. It is such a useful skill. And so what is it? Here's how it works. Basically, if we're in the key of C, C's our 1 chord. And what's our 4 chord? Is F, and our 5 chord is G. So again, what's the point, you're probably saying? The reason is because what's more important about chords is not their names, it's the relationship from one to the other. A 1 to a 4 always has a sound, and we can start to hear that over time. We learn to hear the distance of 1 to 4, and we can pretty much guess our way through any song. In fact, what happens in the band that I play in is sometimes we're given a new song to learn. And so we look at the chords and we're like, oh man, it's just 1, 4, 5. We can listen to the song a couple times and we've pretty much already got it memorized because we can hear what the next chord is going to be based on the sound of 1 to 4, or 1 to 5, or 5 to 1, or 4 to 1. You just get used to hearing it. So it makes playing guitar so much easier. And it's a common way that musicians communicate to each other. We can change the key to any song, and we can figure out what the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, or even the 6 minor for that matter, or the 2 minor, just by using that formula. Because we know in the key of G, 1, 4, 5 is G, C, D. In the key of C, it's C, F, G. In the key of B flat, it's B flat, E flat, F. That sounds hard, but actually it's not. We can just use the guitar to give us the answers, and eventually we can actually just hear the distance, and we know what the next chord is and where to play it. B flat, E flat, F, they're right there. The shape of 1, 4, 5 on the guitar is always the same. If that's my 1 with its root there, then this is my 4 with its root there. And this is my 5, 2 frets up from the 4. Because if I know where my 4 chord is, I always know where my 5 chord is. It's just 2 frets up. It's really worth it. I know it's a bit funny at first, but if you just keep using the concept of 1, 4, 5, and then later on, 6 minor, 2 minor, 3 minor, you'll see it makes playing music so much easier and more enjoyable because you also start to understand how the songs were composed. Number 5 is something that is quite specific to guitar. It's what I call landmarks, but it's something that all great guitar players do. Too many of us end up learning songs and we just think of the song as being something like 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 5, 7. And that's not really understanding the song in a musical sense. What I mean by landmarks is when we learn a song or anything, a riff, a new lick, we want to always associate it with where it comes from. For example, if it's a riff, it's coming from a certain scale, same as if it's a lick, right? Or any song that we're learning, the songwriters or the improvisers were thinking something when they wrote it or when they played it. And the importance of that is that when we understand where the licks and the riffs come from, we learn so much more about it. What it allows us to do is use those ideas in our own playing. We could use it in our own improvisation, or we could write our own songs. And it also just helps us to memorize and learn songs so much faster. Because if we see a lick, a long stream of numbers that's something like, let's say, 10-7, 10-7, 9-7, 9-7, it's not actually just those numbers. What it is it's B minor pentatonic. And when we see it as B minor pentatonic, it's actually very easy to play the lick. It's much easier to play it and memorize it because then we just think, well, that's just descending B minor pentatonic. I know how to do that. So it's well worth it. Whenever you learn anything today, start always asking yourself, well, what key is it in? What scale is he using? What is this chord actually? It's not just a chord at the 7th fret. It's a B minor 7 chord, or whatever it is, right? Then you're not just learning how to play the song, you're learning how to understand music, and you can use all that information going forward with your guitar playing. So let's say you've listened to all these 5 things and you've got all those things down. 1, good for you. But 2, what would the next step be? I would recommend you get good at knowing the intervals on the guitar. This is something that really opens up the guitar fretboard for everyone who does this. For example, if you knew exactly where a major third was, you could target the major third in a solo. Or if you know in a particular moment of a song that it's a minor chord, you could target the minor third of that chord and you could hit that note because it has so much color. Now, I've got a lot of this kind of stuff on our Patreon group, but just to give you a little taste of how it works, all you have to do is just memorize the shapes on the guitar. We don't necessarily memorize that C sharp is a major third of A. We can do that, but what's more important is we know where A is because we've memorized the notes on the low E string, of course, right? And we know, therefore, that the major third is here because it's always that shape. Or even better, what about a major third up an octave? That's really handy because then we could descend minor pentatonic and target the major third, which is not in minor pentatonic, but we know where it is because we've memorized it. And we've memorized it as shapes, which means we can do it in any key we like. What if I did it in a key like E flat? Who plays in E flat? Guitar players never play in E flat, but you could because you know where it is, right? There it is right there, because it's that shape. It's always that shape. And so what are some of the fundamentals that you might be forgetting? You can let me know in the comments. And what I'm going to do is put another video on the screen here for you that will help you improve your guitar playing today. And remember, we've got lots of lessons on our Patreon group. My name is Blue Morris, and I teach guitar lessons here in Vancouver, Canada. I'll see you in the next one.